It's been a crazy time. Of course, going into this season, we expected a degree of craziness for sure. We didn't want it to be in the first week, but it worked out that way. And the uncertainty of knowing when we can play, when we can practice, is tough, on the players because they want to play. They've been going since March now without having played, and it's tough on them, especially when they're sitting and watching other people around the country play and not being able to. So they've handled it well, though. They're anxious to get out there on Thursday and hopefully get a game under their belt.
Is the plan to still get the Central Florida game back in?
Probably not this year. It doesn't look like they've got any, we don't have the corresponding openings to do it this year, so we'll be traveling to Orlando probably next season.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Next, we'll go to Bob Prisbillo.
Lon, I'm not saying non-conference games aren't important, but was it vital to try to make sure you had one game in at least before you go into conference play?
For sure, would rather play a game before TCU on Sunday. Absolutely. We are still uncertain how we're going to respond to a real game situation. We haven't done that yet. A lot of people have several games under their belt, but that's the way it broke, and we're delighted to be playing UTSA on Thursday, and hopefully find out a lot more about ourselves.
We'll go to Jacob Unruh next.
Lon, I'm kind of curious. I know I'm not looking for names, but how deep do you expect your roster to be on Thursday, or do you have any idea yet?
We'll play. Probably what we have 9 guys I think available, scholarship guys. So we'll play them all. We'll play them all. They've all practiced hard. They've done a good job in practice. We'll see how it goes, and the guys that play their minutes well, we'll get back in there. And but again, we need, from a depth standpoint, especially being a first game, conditioning wise, we've not been practicing full speed for a while. So everything's a little bit up in the air.
Is it guys playing out of position stuff still like you talked about a few weeks back?
That'll happen for sure. Obviously, we won't have Victor, a guy that would be, in the big part of the rotation at that 4 or 5 spot. Jalen Hill will play, more now on the inside than he would probably typically. AG Anyang would play more inside than he maybe would originally. So you just have to keep adjusting and keep making it work. You bet.
We'll go to Cliff Brunt next.
Yeah, Coach, you're obviously in great shape. At the same time, you're 68. Do you have any, additional layers of protection for yourself, given the circumstances, the fact that you'll be doing things indoors around people? What is that like for you, and is it any different than it is for other folks?
I'm not sure your question, again, I missed the first part of that. You mean individually, personally?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think the university's done a great job, from a protocol standpoint and a safety standpoint. So we're comfortable with the routine, I guess, day to day. We're heavy on wearing masks. Guys are wearing masks in practice. Coaches are for sure. Distancing in practice as best we can, and distancing always. Sometimes I'm sure a lot of people have gotten COVID without understanding why, or it just happened. But I think we may get it as well. But we do everything we possibly can to increase our chances of not getting it. And in terms of a mask and not being in a crowd and not doing the things that, people say give you a better chance of getting it.
And just a really, really quick follow-up. With Izzo and Boeheim and Rick Barnes contracting, does that hit home at all? And have you had a chance to talk to the others now?
Talked to a few, not those guys in particular, but a few people have had COVID, of course. And I think it's just a reminder to do what we can to avoid it. Not to say that anything's 100% guarantee, but again, university, I think, just continuously reminds us to to be careful and follow the recommendations, and especially with the mask. It's a pretty easy thing to do to wear a mask, and in practice and otherwise. So we've tried to follow the best advice we can get.
Appreciate it, Coach.
You bet.
Let's go to Eric Bailey next.
Lon, last week you told us things could change very quickly, and of course they did. What was it like on Wednesday morning following the test, and kind of describe what that day was like when you found out you couldn't play?
Really a little bit of a throwback to March when we get up. We're expecting to play a game that night in Kansas City, and then all of a sudden we got word that that game was off. A little bit of the same situation here. We had met Wednesday morning, learned of the positive. A few moments later, determined that in fairness and respect to UTSA program as well, that with contact tracing and everything, wouldn't be wise to play. So it was disappointing for the guys for sure. Then to be out of practice for a while, not knowing when we could get back even after that, was tough on the guys too, especially as now they're watching other people around the country play games, and we're not able to.
UTSA was in town on Wednesday. Can you just talk about Coach Henson working with him through this, them understanding the situation, and then even coming back 8 days later?
Yeah, they were disappointed to not be able to play. Their players were disappointed, and probably since it really was on us as far as the reason for not playing, it's probably even a little bit more frustrating for them. Now the shoe may be on the other foot at some point along the way, and will not play because of someone else. But I could imagine their disappointment, their frustration through no fault of their own. The game was canceled and they have to return home. But it's good to have them back, and of course, coaches understand that it happens, and so Steve understood and excited to be coming back, and we know they'll give us a good shot.
Thank you, Lon.
You bet.
Next, we'll go to Myron Patton.
Yeah, Coach. Basketball and football dealt with this all season, and of course they're going through it right now. But basketball, I guess I'll assume the facility was probably closed. Any idea if guys maybe when you got shots up at an outdoor court or anything like that, or are they just totally away from the game for the last few days?
Well, we've been able to practice the last couple days. A little bit limited on Sunday. A little bit more normal practice yesterday, not as long maybe. Required off day today. We'll come back with the normal practice tomorrow. But yeah, at this point in the season, over the last couple of weeks, certainly our conditioning, game condition has probably been affected. And again, a reason we need to have good depth and play a lot of people and try to keep everyone as fresh as possible.
Next, we'll go to Josh Calloway.
Lon, hope everything's going well with you. Just curious, how do you think the team has handled, mentally having to, they always talked about, and yourself as well, how excited they was just to play again and to get back to normal things. Then you have these first two games go away from you. How do you think they've handled it, just kind of rolling with the punches?
They've handled it very well. Disappointed and frustrated, and would rather be out there, but understand what the situation is with COVID, and if you've got a positive, you've got contact tracing. There's been enough conversation, unfortunately, around the country, because of other cases and now our case, where you get exposed to it a little bit in terms of conversation, and you understand, and yet when it happens to you, it takes on a little different hit, and disappointed for sure that they haven't been able to play, but anxious to play still.
We'll go back to Joe Bettner.
Lon, some of the staffing issues the football program has experienced, I'm curious from the basketball side of things, how much you've talked about contingency plans with, if you or one of your assistants were to contract COVID. I mean, is Mike Shepard stepping in to take a role? Like, who's stepping up in those roles if that were to happen?
Yeah, we haven't really. Certainly, we talk about it as it relates to other staffs. When Coach Drew at Baylor is not able to go and things like that. As far as, how it would work here, we haven't really talked specifically about it. We've talked about, certainly being careful and doing all the things we need to try to avoid that situation. But, if you had, it's a little different because if you got a coach that can't be at practice and you can maybe go down the line a little bit, although the rules have allowed, Will Saxon, Mike Shepard to now be at practice in a little bit more of a role than they've been in the past because of COVID. So what the next step would be, we'll address that when we get to it, but hopefully that won't happen. If it does, we'll have time to kick that around. You bet.
Next, we'll go to Jacob Unruh again.
Lon, I know there's probably another round of testing before this game. Do you kind of hold your breath with that more now that you've been through this a little bit?
For sure. We went, as you know, from July to, what would that be, the first week in November with no positive test. And so now once it does happen, then you realize that how disruptive it is, how much it changes everyone's routine, changes the schedule. So again, you absolutely think about it a little bit more and hold your breath a little bit more. Yeah, for sure. We again, we're down numbers wise already. So again, if you were to have another positive, again, not only is the positive out, but you also got the contact tracing. So you've got a lot of things to consider, and when you've dealt with it over the last week, you realize how, again, disruptive it is to everyone's routine. You bet.
All right, we have time for one more, and we'll go to Josh Calloway for our last question.
Hey, just wondering, so obviously the UTSA game would have been the opener for both you guys, but with it getting pushed back, they've actually played a couple times now. Is there anything you've seen from them in those first two games that you maybe wouldn't have been expected or been ready for had you played a week ago?
We get a little bit more off of tape, of course. What they are doing, nothing hugely surprising there. They've got two outstanding guards. They've got other good players around Jackson and Wallace, but those two guys are prolific scorers, very hard to guard. And they've got, again, the other guys, are good players as well. So no real surprise, though, from watching those two ball games, but know that they'll come in here, providing a tough test.